It's been 7 years since Solemain Faqiri died after a violent altercation with correctional officers at an Ontario jail. And still, his family is fighting for justice and an apology. Here in studio now, we're joined by Solemain's brother, Yusuf Faqiri. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Yusuf. I know that this is a difficult topic to speak about. I want to know about the coroner's investigation, wrapped up 6 months ago. Recommendations came along with that. What's happened in that time frame?
I wish I could say that significant actions were taken by the government or significant substantive policy changes to take place, but nothing has happened effectively. We had received a homicide verdict that showed that there were 60 policy breaches in his death. His legs and hands were tied. He was pepper sprayed. A lot of systemic issues that came out of that inquest, and one of the most important recommendations was a very simple one. Was for the government to put a public policy statement, just a statement saying that jails are not the appropriate environment for individuals suffering from mental health challenges. That was within 60 days was the deadline. That was supposed to be in February. They've missed that deadline, and it's as if Solom's life didn't matter at all.
You're at Queen's Park today. You hold this press conference. You're calling for an apology. Tell me, what are some of the actions you'd like the government to take?
The inquest recommendation of the Solomons' death is a blueprint for government to stand on the right side of history. It's a blueprint to address the systemic issues of corrections where individuals are given to their loved ones in body bags. Government has an opportunity to stand on the right side of history, to implement these recommendations, because these recommendations are a direct result of what happened to Soleiman, and it's for government to address these recommendations. We asked the Premier today for an apology, and the Premier did not even have the decency to even respond to the question, let alone give the apology. And almost 6 months since the inquest took place, there has been nothing that's been done in addressing those 57 recommendations.
Have you had any conversations with staff, with the Premier or any politicians right now?
The government, to this day, has not reached out to the Faqiri family publicly. They have not made a statement about Soleiman's tragic death publicly, and not the minister or the Premier has ever reached out to the Faqiri family.
What would that apology look like for you, and what would it mean for you and your family?
Today's inquest was about accountability. It was for the government to acknowledge Solomon's death. He wasn't just a number. He was someone's son, someone's brother. He was a human being that deserved better. And that apology would have been a start in that conversation in transforming corrections. And just as importantly was these recommendations for them to start being implemented. But it seemed like Solly's life was cheap. And the government seems to be under this impression that this case will go away. We're not going away. We're not going to go away. This is directly coming from my mother until this system transforms. And this is why we're here today. We don't want to be here today, Faiza. We do not want to be here. We want to find a way to move forward. We can't. When we have individuals and Ontarians that are losing their lives as we speak right now. Why? Because they have schizophrenia? Why? Because they have bipolar disorder? Why? Because government's inaction is putting them in jails rather than putting them in hospitals? What did they do to deserve these tragic ends? Government needs to make these changes, and we're going to keep pushing for the government to make these changes.
And so no criminal charges have been laid here, but we know provincial police do have the power to reopen this investigation. Have you spoken with the OPP? Do you have any word on whether or not that is possible?
The OPP and the police seem to think that there's a double standard, one standard for the rest of us Ontarians and Canadians and another one for law enforcement. The facts are right in front of us. 50 bruises, legs and hands are tied, pepper sprayed twice, 60 policy breaches, an eyewitness whom they call credible, a jail guard who admitted fault, saying that they did not follow ministry policy. Yet the OPP, almost 6 months since the inquest took place, has not commented in terms of reaching out to the Faqiri family, but they have that power to reopen this investigation. So has the Premier of Ontario to reopen the investigation, but they haven't. And they seem to be under the impression that we're going to go away. We're not going away.
I wanted to ask you, we've been seeing so many photos of Soleiman here, if you can talk a little bit about what he meant to you and what he meant to your family.
He was the gem. He was the golden boy of the family. My family dared to hope. Soleiman was a gifted mind. He was trilingual. He taught my mother how to read. He gave us hope in so many ways. He was a man that forced us to, his mental illness forced us to transform ourselves. And Solly gave that opportunity. And because we, through my mom's leadership and through Solly, were able to view mental illness in a different way, not to stigmatize. And that's who Solly was. But more than anything, Solly was a member of the Faqiri family. He was a brother, a son, and an uncle. And he's dead now. And the conversation today isn't just about him. There's many Solis around us, like Ibrahim Ali, who lost his life in similar circumstances to Solly at Toronto South Detention Center just over 2 weeks ago. We're fighting for them. The government is forcing us to fight because we don't want another Solemain story, a tragedy such as this to take place. Enough is enough.
Okay. Yusuf Faqiri, thank you so much for taking the time to come in here and speak with us about this. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.